Welcome to The Explainer. Today, we're doing something really fascinating. We are taking an anatomical look at a massive, incredibly powerful geopolitical machine. We're going to deconstruct an organization that has literally dictated the pulse of the global economy for decades, but right now, it's facing a fundamental breakdown. We're looking at the cracks in the oil crown. Okay, let's dive right in and see exactly how a group designed to control the world's most vital resource is suddenly starting to lose its grip. Here's our roadmap for today's Explainer. First, a shock to the cartel. Then, what exactly is OPEC? Next, how the machine functions, followed by the OPEC Plus alliance structure, internal cracks and quota clashes, and finally, running in no direction.
All right, Section 1, a shock to the cartel and the UAE's departure.
So, here is the immediate, highly disruptive news hook that is rapidly changing the entire landscape of global oil. On April 29th, an absolute shockwave hit the market. The UAE announced it was leaving OPEC effective May 1, completely ending almost 6 decades of membership. And listen, this isn't just some minor administrative update. No way. The UAE was OPEC's third largest producer. But more importantly, they were one of only 2 members, along with Saudi Arabia, that actually possessed the spare capacity to quickly increase or decrease output to stabilize global markets. So without the UAE, the cartel's foundational ability to act as a shock absorber, it's severely diminished. Moving on to Section 2. What exactly is OPEC, and looking at its origins? To really grasp why this break is so monumental, we need to pop the hood for a second. OPEC stands for the Organization of the Petroleum Exporting Countries. Basically, it was conceived as a platform for producing nations to get together and exert collective control over supply and pricing. See, back in the day, the global oil industry was mostly dominated by a consortium of Western companies known as the Seven Sisters. The producing countries themselves actually had very little say over how much oil was extracted or what price it sold for. OPEC was built specifically as a counterweight to fight that dominance and secure a fairer share of their own resources. Let's do a quick fast forward through how this machine evolved. It was founded in September 1960 in Baghdad by just 5 nations: Iran, Iraq, Kuwait, Saudi Arabia, and Venezuela. At first, its influence was pretty modest, but then 1973 changed absolutely everything. During the Arab-Israeli War, Arab OPEC members imposed an embargo on the US and the Netherlands, and oil prices literally quadrupled overnight. This proved that the organization could function as a massive geopolitical tool. By the 1980s, they formalized things with actual production quotas. And jump to 2016, we get the expanded OPEC Plus alliance, which we're going to dig into in just a minute.
Section 3. How the machine functions, controlling the flow.
Now, OPEC doesn't just hold fancy diplomatic meetings. It operates through very deliberate mechanical levers. Here are its core functions. First, it implements formal production quotas, strictly telling members how much they are allowed to pump. Second, when prices drop, it executes coordinated production cuts to artificially tighten the market and push prices back up. Third, if competitors threaten them, they can just open the valves, increase output, and defend their market share. And the absolutely crucial piece? The whole system relies heavily on Saudi Arabia acting as the swing producer, the one single member large enough and willing enough to adjust its own output to balance the entire machine. To perfectly illustrate this machine in action, let's look at a stress test from the year 2020. Step 1. The COVID-19 pandemic hits, and global demand just falls off a cliff. Oil consumption drops at a pace we have never seen before in history. Step 2. The OPEC machine engages. They agree to execute totally unprecedented production cuts. Step 3. Millions of barrels are instantly removed from the market, which prevents a complete and catastrophic price collapse. And finally, Step 4. As global demand slowly recovers over the next few years, the alliance restores output with perfectly tailored corrections. It was the group working exactly as designed.
Section 4, the OPEC Plus alliance structure, a broader footprint.
But, the global market is never static. Competitors are always emerging. Originally, OPEC relied on nations like Saudi Arabia, the UAE, and Iran. But then, accelerating into the 2010s, the US shale revolution happens. American producers using hydraulic fracturing suddenly unlocked vast new reserves. They were fast, flexible, and super responsive to price. In 2014, instead of cutting output, OPEC just kept pumping to try and force these American producers out of business. Well, it backfired entirely, causing prices to plummet below $30 a barrel. It was an existential crisis. So in 2016, OPEC made a massive pivot. They created OPEC Plus, pulling in huge non-OPEC producers like Russia, Kazakhstan, and Azerbaijan. By expanding that footprint and bringing those former rivals right into the fold, this newly formed OPEC Plus managed to secure roughly 40% of global supply. That was enough market share to effectively coordinate their supply against the dominance of American shale. It was a massive, game-changing upgrade to their influence.
Section 5. Internal cracks and quota clashes, the friction. Of course, a bigger machine inevitably generates a lot more friction, which brings us right back to our starting point, 5 million barrels per day. To put that into perspective, that is enough to fuel a small country for months, and it's the exact number driving a wedge through the heart of the organization. See, the UAE has spent years and a ton of money expanding its production capacity to hit this massive 5 million barrels per day goal. But under the rigid OPEC Plus agreements, their output was capped way lower, around 3.2 to 3.4 million barrels. Just imagine building a massive state-of-the-art factory and being legally mandated by your partners to only run it at 60% capacity. You'd be frustrated, right?
And this is the absolute deepest contradiction within the cartel today. It's a fundamental clash, balancing budgets versus maximizing capacity. Some members, led by Saudi Arabia, prioritize price stability. They desperately need high oil prices to balance their national budgets, so they push for strict cuts. But other members, like the UAE, want to maximize those massive investments. They want to open the valves, pump more volume, and secure their long-term market share before the global energy transition speeds up. The current framework simply cannot satisfy both of those goals at the same time.
And importantly, the UAE isn't actually the first to jump ship because of this. Qatar deported back in 2019 to focus on liquefied natural gas. Ecuador, Gabon, Angola, and Indonesia have all come and gone at various points too. Whenever the rigid demands of the cartel conflict with the individual economic realities of a sovereign nation, the machine loses apart. The UAE's departure is just the latest and frankly most damaging symptom of these structural cracks.
Section 6. Running in no direction, the future.
So, what does this actually mean for the global economy moving forward? What does the post-UAE cartel look like? Well, for the UAE, they gain massive flexibility. They can now increase production once shipping routes stabilize, and they can pursue bilateral deals, like supplying more oil to large importers such as India without any OPEC constraints. But for OPEC itself, the picture is dire. Their ability to move global prices now hinges on fragile remaining members who might be economically unstable, politically fraught, or even at war. And hanging over all of this is the broader energy transition, which is steadily eroding the centrality of Gulf oil altogether. I want to leave you with this really powerful thought from our source material today. The barrel is now cracked, and the oil is running in directions no cartel can follow. Thank you so much for joining me on this explainer. We've seen how an organization built to flawlessly control supply is facing a breakdown it might not ever recover from. With the barrel now cracked, the big question is, are we witnessing the final days of the world's most powerful economic machine, and